Hello. In the last video we saw how lying about the content of Wikipedia in plain sight is all it takes to hoodwink credulous people who are too lazy to do a little reading of their own. And we saw how using a willfully dishonest premise as a starting point leads to a steaming pile of useless non-sequiturs. We were left wondering whether I'm implausibly incompetent or a reprehensible charlatan. I'll even go so far as to criticise the accuracy of scientific presentations that do at least attempt to convey valid information in layman's terms, like here.
But that's not really scientifically accurate.
This serves no purpose other than to create the impression that I care about accuracy. As we'll see throughout the video, I don't. For me to present scientifically inaccurate information after a statement like this would simply be hypocritical. So let's see how long it takes before I get something wrong. Start the clock.
Because it has no structure to it.
Less than a second and I'm already resorting to meaningless terms that don't address the point in any way. Let the clock continue.
What we do know about them is rather interesting. With our modern mathematics and physics, we understand that at the center of the black hole is a space with zero volume and yet infinite gravity.
12 seconds from talking about scientific accuracy, and I'm wrong again. Gravity isn't infinite in a singularity. A finite mass collapses to form a black hole, and in a singularity the density of matter and curvature of space-time become infinite. Infinite density does not equal infinite gravity. If it did, there would be no safe distance from any black hole, and that isn't the case. Continue.
Infinite gravity, so powerful that light itself cannot escape its pull.
Wrong again. The singularity isn't the point where light cannot escape. That is the Schwarzschild radius, which in the case of a black hole defines its event horizon. So here we are, 17 seconds from criticising the accuracy of others, and I've so far got nearly every basic aspect of understanding black holes completely wrong.
Infinity. You know what that means, right?
Yes, it means there's another non-sequitur heading straight for us.
It means that the speed of light isn't the fastest thing in the universe, as we have believed for so long.
Wrong again. Light's inability to escape a black hole doesn't in any way imply that there is something that can travel faster than light. All it means is that light doesn't travel fast enough to escape. That's all.
Whether faster than light is something specific to black holes, or if they're found elsewhere in the universe, that's not yet officially scientifically known.
What I mean is that it isn't known at all by anybody. Do you know why? Because I just made it up. It's a clear example of how I use weasel words to make it sound like I'm not just making stuff up, but I am.
But I'd reckon that at the heart of light itself, inside the photon of light in the nucleus of a subatomic particle, at a level so small that our technology cannot even see, that infinity is also present. So I want to show you something interesting, and also a little funny. Just flow with me on this. It's pretty funny if we can lighten up about ourselves. See, it appears as though pictures such as this have been used for years and years to try and describe the structure of space and black holes.
False. They are illustrations of gravitational wells, a way of visualizing curvature of space-time in a way that can be drawn so that it makes some kind of sense. They are neither descriptive nor intended to be, and so they do not describe the structure of anything.
Over and over, all over the world, space-time is often described as if it's this big flat plane out in space.
Except that it isn't anywhere.
And that the planets, the stars, the black holes just sort of create gravity around the fabric of space, and it just made me laugh.
Well, it would do. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I can't even understand illustrations to any level that demonstrates basic competency.
I'm pretty sure that most people would agree that space itself isn't flat.
I've conflated the ideas of Earth being flat with the idea of space being flat purely to create a visual straw man for you to laugh at. I've then wrapped that in an argumentum ad populum based on the population then forming an argument from incredulity. Well, why use one logical fallacy when you can combine them into a combo move of quite epic stupidity? Nobody has ever thought that space is a flat plane living out in space. And that's not what the term flat space-time even means. In presenting this slide, I dishonestly present scientists as people who just make arbitrary decisions about what reality is. Talk about projection. While I'm here playing with my crayons and making stuff up, people are doing real science and finding real answers.
And I'm also pretty sure that these scientific institutions don't genuinely believe that space is flat.
I'm wrong. Space has been unequivocally shown to be flat using the cosmic microwave background radiation. What does flat mean in terms of four-dimensional space-time? Simply that a beam of light would, without distortions introduced by gravitational sources, continue in a straight line forever, without curving back on itself, suggesting a closed space-time, or being divergent, suggesting an open universe.
We're not exactly sure what it looks like.
Except that we are, for the reasons just stated.
It's probably like being underwater, and there's waves constantly moving from all different sources. Gravity from this star, and that star, and this galaxy, and this black hole. It's a jumble, it's messy, and we don't know how to visualize it.
More projection of my ignorance onto the scientific community. But brace yourself for the ultimate in hypocrisy.
Unless we can actually demonstrate that scientifically, we're pretty much just throwing darts in the dark here.
Now you might be wondering when I'm going to get around to substantiating any of my horseshit scientifically, particularly when one considers that in the comments to this very video, I respond to Marizilla claiming that I do follow the scientific method. I go on to say I'm learning more and more about how to do that every day, and to demonstrate what that looks like, and to put it into action. Given that we've already seen utter dishonesty in representing what is and isn't known, we can safely say that the comment is either utterly disingenuous or utterly delusional. Either way, we'll see how it matches reality in due course.
The original reason I brought this up was this whole flat universe model. We need to find a better way to describe space-time and the shape of black holes.
Really? What's wrong with general relativity?
See, now pictures like this are starting to gain steam on the internet. These concepts seem to accurately demonstrate the toroidal flow of the cosmos, and the patterns in geometry that are at the heart of the ways that reality is constructed.
You weren't really hoping for something superior to general relativity, were you? Yes, I think allegedly popular pictures on the internet are A, science, and B, accurately demonstrate some bullshit I made up. And wasn't I earlier looking at pictures and using them to misrepresent science to further my own dishonest narrative? Why yes, I was. So you may be wondering just how I came to the conclusion that these pictures represented a defective model of reality, whilst these demonstrate my magic horseshit.
Unless we can actually demonstrate that scientifically, we're pretty much just throwing darts in the dark here. Unless we can actually demonstrate that scientifically, we're pretty much just throwing darts in the dark here.
Since I claim that these pictures demonstrate a thing I call toroidal flow, it's worth pointing out that that's not toroidal, neither is that, and neither is that. So let's carry on with this non-toroidal, toroidal flow stuff.
I want to present an idea with you. This is an idea that has sort of been mainstream-ish for a while.
As you've probably suspected, I'm lying, but let's see what about.
But it never really got the big attention from scientific institutions or the media, because we have a hard time seeing this to be demonstrated out in the universe. Unless we can actually demonstrate that scientifically, we're pretty much just throwing darts in the dark here.
So we've already implicitly found that it wasn't science done by any reputable scientists.
At the same time, that's how we evolve in science, is we have to make predictions and then try and demonstrate and find examples of these things to see that they are in fact true, or find the way in which it is true.
No, that is not how science is done. It doesn't involve making up nonsense and then going around looking for ways to confirm that idea. This is basic stuff, and I just lied to you about it. So what is this supposedly mainstream-ish non-science idea that I'm wanting to share?
The laws of a toroidal field dictate that what goes in must come out, and what goes out must come back in.
And there we have it. The mainstream-ish idea that I've been leading up to is a law that doesn't even exist, and therefore is not science. Not only was I just making things up, I was then packaging it in further lies to try and give it a gloss of credibility. I suggested the idea was mainstream-ish, as if there was some broader scientific support for it. There isn't. The reason it never got the big attention from scientific institutions is because they weren't even aware of it, because I just pulled it out of my backside.
We could also imagine that perhaps small black hole vacuums are what creates stars.
Sure, and we can also imagine that Jews come from space and had a war with Martians. This is just meaningless drivel. What is a black hole vacuum? Black holes don't create stars. Gravitational collapses of molecular clouds create stars. Hang on, I already know this though.
You know, stars form from collapsing clouds of space dust, and perhaps at the core of that fusing is that infinite space of fusion and infinity, the singularity.
Word salad. Having accepted that stars form from collapsing gas clouds, you're probably hoping that I propose some mechanism by which that collapse would form a black hole to satisfy my previous conjecture that black holes create stars. Sadly, you're shit out of luck. Note how I'm now claiming that a singularity is a place where fusion occurs. As if the jumble of words I don't understand wasn't bad enough, check out the diagram. Yes, having previously stated that light can't escape a black hole or a singularity, I'm now claiming that helium can. If that makes sense to you, you clearly haven't been paying attention. The fusion in stars doesn't take place at a magic point. It takes place anywhere in the core region where temperatures and pressures are high enough.
I know. What does it have to do with you, right?
Nope. The appropriate question is, what does this have to do with physics, or even more broadly, science as a method? And the answer, as you might have expected, is jack shit.
I want to create even more connections between our understandings of singularities, black holes, and ourselves.
As we've already seen, I misrepresent the basics of both, so your understanding is already flawed. Attempting to connect a flawed understanding of anything to something else is a waste of time. Deciding that something should be the case, and then trying to make up reasons to justify it, is not scientific.
Well, the modern definition of a singularity is the state, quality, or condition of being singular. It's also known as the point at which a function takes an infinite value.
These two meanings are listed separately for a reason. They apply to different domains or contexts. I've conveniently ignored the fact that the second definition applies in the domain of physics and mathematics. By doing this and pretending that these definitions somehow combine together, I can squeeze another non sequitur out of my mind's arse.
Interesting. 0 and 1, all at the same time.
Check this out. Not only have I conflated two separate domain-specific meanings of the word singularity, I've now also declared that 0 equals infinity. And wouldn't you just love to see the mathematical proof for that one? Well, once again, you're out of luck, and we've learned nothing.
Singularities were first coined as a description of the singular space from which all things came from before the creation of the universe through the Big Bang. This idea was then carried over to describe what happens inside a black hole. And then they were related to singular points in general across our various scientific fields in mathematics.
An unmitigated pack of lies. The concept of singularities didn't have its origin with the Big Bang theory at all, and we weren't fumbling around not knowing what to call singularities in mathematics until the Big Bang theory came along. Once again, I show complete and utter disregard for getting things right.
This is exciting. Singularities are not solely limited to black holes. They appear everywhere. We just have to practice identifying them. One of the best examples we have at our disposal is a waveform.
No, it isn't. Firstly, I've disregarded what a mathematical singularity actually is. You know, the one we looked at before. There is no point on that curve that is undefined. A sine or cosine function will return a value for any input.
A sine wave continually oscillates back and forth between a center point, a singular point between the yin and yang. This is a singularity in motion.
Secondly, I'm declaring that a point on a plotted waveform is moving. This is just bollocks.
I mean, you know as well as I do that, especially since radio technology, the use and recognition of waveforms is present all over the place. It's even what we see when we look at the spectrum of light through a digital lens.
No, it isn't. And what the hell is a digital lens?
In modern mathematics and geometrics, we have mathematical singularities, singular points on curves, rational singularities, isolated singularities, movable and removable singularities. These are all describing more complex versions of that sine wave singularity that I first showed you.
Since the sine wave example was false, that statement was too. Note also how I don't supply any mathematics to back up either claim. That's because I can't do any. So, having established that this was all nonsense, let's move on. Having argued that the best example of a singularity is a waveform when it isn't, and that an orbit is an oscillation when it isn't, I then choose an arbitrary view of some made-up orbits, to produce something where nothing is a consistent sinusoidal waveform.
Interesting.
Why is this interesting? Who knows? Having shown nothing at all, just wait for the conclusion I reach from this one. Get your face-protecting oven glove ready, because this one's going to sting.
In this way, the very large harmonize with the very small.
Sorry, I'm going to have to stop myself there. In what way is that? When one refers to this way, one needs to actually have qualified this by demonstrating a way that this can refer to. I've shown nothing of merit, nothing of any mathematical significance whatsoever, and no mechanism that this conclusion can possibly follow from. So we have another non sequitur on our hands, dressed up in word salad, and based on misrepresentation of every concept used so far. Which brings us neatly onto Spirit Science 27, the vacuum of space. Having relayed some popcorn incident involving overexcitement at noted crank Nassim Haramein, let's get straight down to the word salad.
You see, it's so exciting because with that understanding, we actually begin to open up our understanding of what a singularity really is.
Except that nothing has been demonstrated, let alone understood. Haramein made up some claim, I swallowed it whole, and am now pretending that there's some science to my own bullshit.
Kindred Spirit messaged me on the interwebs recently and asked me how come I thought the vacuum cleaner model of a black hole wasn't fitting.
There is no vacuum cleaner model of black holes.
I get the analogy. It's a vacuum cleaner because it sucks things up, right? Got it. So what about the center of the galaxy, which is not only absorbing light, but also radiating it?
As if the black hole at the center of the galaxy were responsible for both.
Is that like the light on the top or something?
It's not the black hole emitting light, it's the billions of stars orbiting it. It's really not hard to understand. Having failed to tell you this simple and key bit of information, I propose an alternative to the vacuum cleaner analogy, a whirlpool. And unfortunately this is a Spirit Science video, so start the clock.
With the whirlpool, the surface of the water from above appears flat. And much like our diagrams with whirlpools in water, the energy going into the vortex is going somewhere. Where? A space of greater density. Because at the bottom of the whirlpool, it's all really heavy because there's the weight of the water compressing on top of it.
The simple fact of the matter is, I'm talking shit. I couldn't even validly claim that the water in a whirlpool is compressed in some way, making it denser. Because water is essentially incompressible. Even in the Mariana Trench, the density of the water increases by less than 5%, despite the colossal pressure of over 1,000 atmospheres.
I mean, isn't that the perfect model for the black hole?
Given that everything I stated about water was wrong, no, it's quite obviously useless even as an analogy. Calling it a model is obscene. Calling it a perfect model indicates that I'm as disconnected from reality as my brown chakra.
Why are we getting stuck on a vacuum cleaner?
Nobody is. It's an analogy, sometimes used on websites for children. It's back to Swiss crank and non-scientist Nassim Haramein, who supposedly describes the structure of the vacuum. What does any of this have to do with black holes and vacuum cleaners? The use of the word vacuum appears to be the only connection, and that's based on a shit analogy used for children, so really nobody knows. I wasted 2.5 minutes of your life on that shit, and now here I am having to spend more time explaining why it was shit. Remember in the last part we talked about how anybody can piss around with shapes and make claims about them? Well, here we are in someone's lounge doing just that.
When we begin to look at the relationship between the data points in the vacuum, we see that they equate the phi ratio over and over and over.
Really? And what are these data points? Who did this work with vacuums? At which laboratory? Where can we find papers detailing the results and the methodology used to obtain them? What are the error margins? Why didn't I present any of this? Because none of it actually exists. There are no data points. I don't even know what I mean by equate to the phi ratio. It's meaningless word salad and unmitigated bullshit. You in the audience, however, are supposed to remember that I've mentioned phi before and think, it's all connected, without noticing that aside from word repetition, I've made no connection between anything and presented nothing of any substance whatsoever. Yes, we're back to the flower of life.
This is the pattern we come up with, which Nassim has called the 64 tetrahedron grid. Were you to put a sphere around every point, they would create a perfect three-dimensional flower of life.
If you draw a shape with the express intention of being able to draw a flower of life on top of it, then you can draw a flower of life on top of it. What a remarkable achievement.
This is basically a three-dimensional Metatron's cube, a structure by which all known structures can be found. The pattern can continually fractal larger and smaller to create complex geometries and structures, such as molecules or organ systems in our bodies, which are made up based on the variety of different patterns all found within the shape. If this structure is the male component, then the female component would be the toroidal flow between and around all of the points. Imagine that every sphere in and of itself is a torus, each with a singularity of its own. But the larger fractal is a larger sphere, also with a singularity, of which all of the other toroids are connected to. You can see this geometry really clearly in the brain. You have the entire field, which is a network of interconnected data. Then you have the corpus callosum, which acts like an accretion disk of a galaxy.
What do I mean? How the hell should you know? I don't actually explain myself, and I don't care what words mean anyway. Suffice to say that the corpus callosum is neither structurally nor functionally anything like an accretion disk. It doesn't even work as a metaphor. I'm not done lying about biology yet, though.
And then the pineal gland right in the center, which is the connector and the singularity for the entire network and field that is your brain.
Bollocks. At the very best, I was mangling the ideas of Descartes, which means that my claims about the function of the pineal gland are over 360 years out of date. Descartes was called on his nonsensical bullshit in the 1600s by Spinoza, so I have no excuse whatsoever. Having claimed that the pineal gland is a singularity, I go on to claim that the singularity is the infinite vacuum, which is not only completely meaningless, but also means that I'm claiming that the pineal gland is a vacuum, and an infinite one at that. Quite what this diagram has to do with that is anyone's guess. Gravity doesn't vary with size, it varies with mass and distance from that mass. This is school-level physics, and once again, I'm more than happy to present incorrect information to undermine your education. I'm a charlatan and a liar. For all you spiritards who claim that I never state anything as fact, listen carefully.
By the fact that they are connected through their singularity.
You may be wondering how this supposed fact was established to be so. Well, it wasn't. Come on, keep up. I'm making claims about reality that are false. I'm a charlatan and a liar.
Energy and information can pass through the center and translate to anywhere else on the grid if there's a passage to it.
Since my initial fact was complete gibberish, it's no surprise that this is too.
Much like the idea of folding a piece of paper to create a wormhole.
Wait, did I just say that you can create wormholes by folding pieces of paper?
When the singular connection is made between 2 points, now the entire distance can be traveled instantly. This is demonstrated scientifically when we see that subatomic particles can be in 2 places at the same time, or break the laws of physics when it comes to time and order, almost as if some particles are moving backwards in time. Seriously, time-traveling subatomic particles are real. Sources in the comments.
So let's get this absolutely clear. I'm claiming that this can be demonstrated scientifically. Well, let's check out those sources, shall we? Source number 1 is, surprise surprise, Wikipedia. And we know how honest I am at presenting material from there. This article is about hypothetical faster-than-light particles. A tachyon is a hypothetical particle. Most physicists think faster-than-light particles cannot exist because they are not consistent with the known laws of physics. If such particles did exist, blah 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 blah, experiments have been conducted to search for them. No compelling evidence for their existence has been found. What's source number 2? Is it a peer-reviewed science paper with independently reproduced results? No. It's an 85-second YouTube clip describing the decay of pi mesons at the LHC for a lay audience.
Ordinarily, they disintegrate after just 25 billionths of a second. When they are accelerated to near light speed, they last 30 times longer. These particles are real-life time travelers.
The simple fact of the matter is that anything travelling at relativistic speeds experiences time dilation. The same thing happens with muons in the upper atmosphere. I, however, suggested that particles behave as if they travel back in time. They don't. What's behind door number 3? It's an article from pop science site livescience.com. It's about the initial report in 2011 that neutrinos appeared to have travelled faster than light. What does the first sentence of this article say? If a report of particles travelling faster than light turns out to be true. So, this article was written before an error was found in the measurements, which were only tentative anyway. It goes on to give a fair appraisal of the situation at the time it was written. When the very first sentence tells you that the result is unvalidated, the correct thing to do would be to find out what the follow-up was, not present this article as if it demonstrated time-travelling particles. Anybody who bothered reading the first link would have found this information there too, again confirming that there is no scientific basis for claiming that faster-than-light particles exist. Not only have I made false claims of things being facts, but I've lied about material from third parties in a parasitic attempt to claim scientific backing. Of 3 links that I provided, none even say what I claim they do, let alone support unrelated made-up garbage. The rest of the video goes on and on in the same vein about singularities. Neither you nor I have any idea what kind of singularity I'm talking about from one moment to the next, because I just throw the word around like confetti made of sun-dried bullshit, whilst skipping through fields of incoherent dribble flowing from my mind's arse. Since we introduced the mind's arse in the last video, now is an excellent time to build upon that. We saw how my mind's arse is overactive, and how the cosmic ring piece explains so much sacred geometry. If we take this silly symbol I use to represent whatever I mean when I use the word singularity this time, we see that it fits over the flower of life. Who would have thought that 3 circles could possibly fit over another diagram made entirely of overlapping circles? Oh, the profundity! If we take this shape and rotate it, we see that inside an outer sphere it forms a horn torus. If we use the word fractal as if it means resize, and totally disregard what the word actually means, we can fractal the 2-dimensional form of the cosmic ring piece so that it fits perfectly within our made-up singularity motif. This one is male, because, so of course there must be a female component to provide balance in Wooland. Having drawn cosmic ring pieces within the torus, we find that it is, just like everything else, part of the toroidal field, as well as the flower of life. The creation of the torus itself creates another space which harmoniously holds the 3-dimensional form of the cosmic ring piece, taking the whole structure to a new dimensional level of existence. This new toroidal hybrid of the cosmic ring piece is the astral arsehole. We know that cosmic ring pieces are connected to your brown chakra, which is the root source of every crap idea. The male and female cosmic ring pieces rotating around the toroidal field of the astral arsehole generate an infinite amount of crap ideas with no connection to reality. The gravity that I've just invoked creates an accretion disk and causes them to concentrate at the singularity right in the heart of the astral arsehole, because reasons, creating a point of infinitely dense ideas. The mental diarrhea can escape from the singularity through the astral arsehole's own cosmic ring piece, allowing unlimited horseshit to escape the toroidal field of the singularity. Making up a toroidal law means that what goes out comes back in. According to the principles of yin and yang, there's a mind's arse on the other side of the astral arsehole too. And all the stupid ideas come right back in. But they also flow out of that side and into the first one. Through this we see that infinite horseshit describes the shape of the toroidal field in the Hippy Thoughtspace, and crucially, matches our incoherent singularity motif. As we saw last time, each 2-dimensional flower of life is an interconnected web of stupid ideas and arseholes. We know that the points are incredibly dense and connected to each other by stupid ideas. Does this look familiar?
When the singular connection is made between 2 points, now the entire distance can be traveled instantly.
It's all connected! That's right, the incredibly dense points are singularities, with an instantaneous connection between them, because, as we've seen, folding a piece of paper can create a wormhole, somehow. These singularities line up perfectly with the intersections of overlapping astral arseholes, showing the cosmic significance of the toroidal flow of infinite horseshit, which can travel anywhere in the network instantly. What this means is that whilst we can invent convoluted means of justifying woo-woo to ourselves, we can merely assert something and it instantly becomes real. By the very application of this method, we have demonstrated that astral arseholes are in fact real. This was a revelation, but it was nothing to what came next. Just as the cosmic ring piece fits within the singularity motif and the flower of life, so the flower of life fits within the singularity motif.
Holy shit!
By this process of resizing one diagram on top of another, we've arrived at a new way of visualizing things. An astral arsehole containing a flower of life contains more astral arseholes, and so on. Just as crap ideas fit within each other, so too do singularities of infinite horseshit. We have just demonstrated, by the mere act of drawing things, an important and exciting new discovery. Fractal horseshit. This is the very quintessence of the hippie Thoughtspace, and without it, it's impossible to sell books and magic rocks to the gormless and the feckless.
So we've played around with shapes some more and done some more post hoc assignment of meaning. What else? We find that by supposedly building upon earlier ideas, it's easy to create an impression that new information is being supplied. You can simply pretend that what came before was valid and pile more nonsense on top of it. Repeat key words and you can create the impression that things are connected. Create an illusion of discovery and you can hook the credulous even though all you've done is play around with shapes and make things up with no more sophistication than a child. Constantly pretend that there's more in-depth material to come later and you can keep them dangling. And so it is with spirit, science and his various channels. What purpose would more in-depth content serve when the foundations and basics are completely wrong? You can't add depth to something that doesn't even stand up to basic scrutiny in the first place. Despite the pretense of caring about accuracy and caring about learning, the material presented by Spirit Science in the videos we looked at here is, just like the last time, reliant on misrepresenting what is known to create false premises used to draw ridiculous and unsubstantiated conclusions. I've only addressed some of the content of those 3 videos on a point-by-point basis. It's still taken half an hour, even though most of that is just buzzing things that are wrong and or fallacious. When someone claims to follow the scientific method, and then gets the basics of what that method even is completely wrong, we have to ask ourselves, how much research do you need to do to get a basic understanding of the scientific method? Very little. Yet he claims to do lots of research. There is no part of the scientific method that says, lie about what is known, make stuff up, and get busy with the crayons. He's also clearly watched Cosmos, a series that describes the scientific method more than once, and provides numerous examples of hard work and facts triumphing over belief, superstition and deceit. Even if Cosmos were the only material anybody had ever been exposed to describing the scientific method and its application, one must wonder how someone could watch that and then still present a straw man of science that just happens to include the ability to pretend that things are true when they're found not to be. When someone presents science sources, and you can ascertain that none of them support the basic claims made by doing nothing more than reading them, is it likely that Spirit Science got all of them wrong through consistently moronic levels of misunderstanding? That'd be asking us to believe that he doesn't know, for example, what the word hypothetical means. Speaking of meanings, it's rather convenient that, throughout his materials, the words whose meanings he ignores or misappropriates just happen to be the ones that form the basis of a narrative that is dependent on those misrepresentations or lack of definitions. It is also highly convenient that whilst he misrepresents science content consistently, he doesn't seem to have any difficulty presenting the content of non-scientific sources. Spirit Science only manages to get the science so consistently wrong. How jolly convenient. Thanks for watching.